Good evening, I'm Steve Pereira and welcome to Queer ID on Ben TV. We're talking again today with Sandbach, Evan Ritli, and joining us is Lucy Maxwell from Young Liberty for Law Reform about the issue of LGBTI refugees. In an earlier episode, we talked about what's happening to queer refugees who are being resettled in Papua New Guinea, where being queer is against the law and open to prosecution, which raises a huge issue for people who both declare themselves to be gay or people who are refugees and who happen to be gay.
Yeah.
So how can we change the situation?
Do you guys want to take that in terms of what your key actions are for people who attended the event and where you direct people to?
There's a few things that people can do if they want to get involved and, make some changes. First, we'd say get involved in a human rights organisation or a refugee organisation that's really pushing these issues. It's a matter of raising awareness on the issues and getting out there and putting pressure on politicians.
But raising awareness with whom? Because clearly all the politicians know the issue. What will actually take? What steps actually need to happen next? Does it have to be legislative change? Does it have to be thunderbolt and lightning? What's going to change the law?
What we'd like to see is that Australia to stop offshore processing in general, but in particular with the LGBTI issue, to process LGBTI refugees claiming on that basis in Australia and resettle in Australia. That's the end goal. That's what needs to happen to change this from this horrible situation that we're currently in.
But something else specific that was raised at the event by Chris Walker.
Do you want to talk about the event very briefly?
Sure.
Because,
well, we had three panellists.
This is at Midsummer 2015?
Yeah, yes. At the Northcote Town Hall. And one of the key objectives of the event was to, when you talk about who to raise awareness with, I think we were really keen to engage the LGBTI community in Melbourne and Victoria more generally about this political issue that I think has been taken on by people involved in refugee activism or human rights lawyers, but maybe not by the LGBTI community more generally. So that was really the target of this event. And the three speakers were quite different. One was a former politician from PNG, Dame Carol Kiddu. She spoke about her efforts to try and decriminalise homosexuality in PNG and how resettlement might work in PNG. And then we had a barrister that's done a lot of work in refugee advocacy, Chris Walker, who's now a silk. And we had a campaigner from Amnesty International, Sen Raj, who's done a PhD on better models around the world for how claims for asylum on the basis of sexuality are assessed. And that was actually something that came out of the event, aside from legislative change, but better training of decision makers and tribunal members when they're hearing from someone who's saying that they're being persecuted on the grounds of their sexuality, what kinds of sensitive questions need to be asked to enable someone to make their claim. And do you guys want to talk about the kinds of stereotypes that are used?
Can I just go back to, from a lay perspective and from somebody who comes from a migrant culture and is hopelessly outraged now that I'm learning more about this, changing PNG's attitude to homosexuality for me wouldn't be the first step, logically. The first step would be to get our parliamentarians to get the act in order and say, this is Australia. We believe in fundamental human rights. We believe in non-discrimination. We will not support any regime that does that, and we will not partner with any regime that does that. Does that not seem like a logical first step?
I completely agree. I think the first step is for us to change our laws and to not send people there in the first place.
That's right. Yeah.
The decriminalisation of homosexuality in Papua New Guinea is a separate issue, and it would be great for that to happen and to be decriminalised there. But what we need to focus on is Australia changing Australia's policies and processing here, resettling here, rather than sending off to a third world country that's struggling in many ways with these issues.
Can I ask what might be a difficult question then, or might be an awkward question, in that in including somebody from PNG talking about decriminalisation of homosexuality in PNG, is in effect kind of disingenuous because it deflects the problem away from our problem and says it's their problem.
Yeah, I think the reason why we wanted to have a speaker from PNG was to talk about what would resettlement look like? If Australia is really committing to resettling refugees in PNG, is it feasible? And also that idea, which I think is maybe a myth, that if there's a criminal law that's not enforced, it's okay to send people there. And Dame Carol said some interesting things about the risks of having a law that's on the books and hangs over people's heads, really.
Her words were laws that are not used may be abused.
Absolutely, and we've talked earlier about what's happening in India, where homosexuality has been recriminalised, not enforced, but it puts millions of people at risk because they're open to abuse by the police and anybody else who wants to blackmail them for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So hugely problematic in that sense.
Indeed.
So if you were to have a singular message to the LGBTI community in terms of a first step towards taking action on this, what would your suggestion be?
I hand it to you guys.
I'd say, as a first step, support human rights organisations like Liberty Victoria, as well as others that campaign for change, for making it a fair and a better system for asylum seekers to be resettled in Australia, or if not, in a country where they'll be provided with safety and security.
So write letters to your MP,
Yeah.
Yes.
lobby people.
Raise awareness in the community in general. Show people this interview. Get people talking about this issue. So, one thing we've found with refugee issues in general is the LGBTI aspect of it is so unknown. People don't know that it's against the law in Papua New Guinea to have consensual sex with males, and they don't know that we're sending LGBTI asylum seekers to that country.
But also we have this, we were talking earlier before the interview, and this absurd idea about how they're identifying people who are gay, who claim to be gay, and they've got this, do you like Madonna music?
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
So they use Western ideas of what it means to be gay and apply it to people who are not from a Western culture. They're generally from the Middle East or Central Asia or other parts of Southeast and Southern Asia.
Yeah, so if you're from Syria and have never heard from Madonna, you're stuffed either way.
Yes.
To verify the claims, they need to first prove that you are gay, that your claim checks out, and that you were persecuted because you're gay. And in that context, that's why they ask things like, tell us about your favourite Madonna album. They base ridiculous stereotypes. They also will say, like, what's the main gay club in Karachi or something? Just absurd.
Which being homosexual in Karachi is illegal.
Yeah, and they'll just assume that because you're from that, you say you're gay, you're from this country, you must know this. It's
I'm not a scene
outrageous.
guy, I don't hang out the scene. Where can people find out more about Young Liberty?
Well, we've got a Facebook page, which is just Young Liberty for Law Reform.
All right.
And you can sign up there. We post our work. A lot of the other groups, we've got about 25 volunteers currently working on a range of human rights issues. And as well as doing things like the Midsummer event, we do submissions to government, host public events, and try and raise awareness through other forms. So interviews like today, newspaper articles and that kind of thing. And we're recruiting for the next 12-month program of volunteers. So people who are interested in working in small groups to do law reform projects, supervised by human rights advocates, feel free to check out our Facebook page or our website, Liberty Victoria. If you Google that, the Young Liberty program link will be there.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of the gay community, thank you for being part of the process of stopping this and eradicating this completely illogical process. We've been talking to David, Evan and Lucy from Law Reform, from Young Liberty for Law Reform.
Yeah.
I've been Steve Pereira. I will continue to be Steve Pereira for a while, I hope. You're watching A Queer Idea on Ben TV. Thank you for watching.